Bienvenidos a un nuevo video de Free Common Languages. En esta oportunidad haré conjugaciones con todos los pronombres personales en el pasado simple. Es importante destacar que el pronombre personal it, que se refiere a esto o ello en neutro, se utiliza mayormente para hacer referencia a cosas, animales y lugares. Al utilizarse en ciertas oraciones puede cambiar el significado de la misma. Más adelante veremos un ejemplo de esto. A continuación, haré conjugaciones con los pronombres personales, pero solo la primera persona la diré en español. Esto hará que sea más fácil y práctico el aprendizaje. Comencemos. Yo. Yo pagué mis estudios con mi trabajo en la universidad. I worked my way to college. I worked my way to college. You. Tú, usted. You worked your way to college. You worked your way to college. He. Él. He worked his way through college. He worked his way through college. She. Ella. She worked her way through college. She worked her way through college. We. Nosotros. We worked our way through college. We worked our way through college. You. Ustedes. You worked your way through college. You worked your way through college. They. Ellos. They worked their way through college. They worked their way through college. Yo. Yo pagué mi viaje con mi trabajo desde Barranquilla hasta Londres. I worked my way from Barranquilla to London. I worked my way from Barranquilla to London. You, tú, usted. You worked your way from Barranquilla to London. You worked your way from Barranquilla to London. He, él. He worked his way from Barranquilla to London. He worked his way from Barranquilla to London. She, ella. She worked her way from Barranquilla to London. She worked her way from Barranquilla to London. We, nosotros. We worked our way from Barranquilla to London. We worked our way from Barranquilla to London. You, ustedes. You worked your way from Barranquilla to London. You worked your way from Barranquilla to London. They, ellos. They worked their way from Barranquilla to London. They worked their way from Barranquilla to London. Yo. Yo no trabajé la semana pasada. I didn't work last week. I didn't work last week. You, tú, usted. You didn't work last week. You didn't work last week. He, Él. He didn't work last week. He didn't work last week. She. Ella. She didn't work last week. She didn't work last week. It. Eso. Neutro. It didn't work last week. Acá vemos el ejemplo al que hacía referencia con anterioridad. El significado de la oración cambió y ya no hablamos de trabajar, sino de que algo no funcionó. It didn't work last week. We. Nosotros. We didn't work last week. We didn't work last week. You. Ustedes. You didn't work last week. You didn't work last week. They. Ellos. They didn't work last week. They didn't work last week. I. Yo. Yo extrañé o extrañaba a mis padres. I missed my mom and dad. You. Tú. Usted. You missed your mom and dad. You missed your mom and dad. He. Él. He missed his mom and dad. He missed his mom and dad. She. Ella. She missed her mom and dad. She missed her mom and dad. We. Nosotros. We missed our mom and dad. We missed our mom and dad. You. Ustedes. You missed your mom and dad. You missed your mom and dad. They. Ellos. They missed their mom and dad. They missed their mom and dad. I. Yo. ¿Yo estudié los verbos anoche? Did I study the verbs last night? You. Tú. Usted. Did you study the verbs last night? Did you study the verbs last night? He. Él. Did he study the verbs last night? Did he study the verbs last night? She. Ella. Did she study the verbs last night? Did she study the verbs last night? We. Nosotros. Did we study the verbs last night? Did we study the verbs last night? You. Ustedes. Did you study the verbs last night? Did you study the verbs last night? They. Ellos. Did they study the verbs last night? Did they study the verbs last night? I. Yo. Yo estudié mi lección de inglés anoche. I studied my English lesson last night. You. Tú. Usted. You studied your English lesson last night. You studied your English lesson last night. He. Él. He studied his English lesson last night. He studied his English lesson last night. She. Ella. She studied her English lesson last night. She studied her English lesson last night. We, nosotros. We studied our English lesson last night. We studied our English lesson last night. You, ustedes. You studied your English lesson last night. You studied your English lesson last night. They, ellos. They studied their English lesson last night. They studied their English lesson last night. I, yo. Yo lavé mis manos en el baño o tocador. I washed my hands in the bathroom. You, tú, usted. You washed your hands in the bathroom. You washed your hands in the bathroom. He, él. He washed his hands in the bathroom. He washed his hands in the bathroom. She, ella. She washed her hands in the bathroom. She washed her hands in the bathroom. We, nosotros. We washed our hands in the bathroom. We washed our hands in the bathroom. You, ustedes. You washed your hands in the bathroom. You washed your hands in the bathroom. They, ellos. They washed their hands in the bathroom. They washed their hands in the bathroom. I, yo. Yo no estudié el idioma inglés el año pasado. I didn't study the English language last year. You, tú, usted. You didn't study the English language last year. You didn't study the English language last year. He, él. He didn't study the English language last year. He didn't study the English language last year. She, ella. She didn't study the English language last year. She didn't study the English language last year. We, nosotros. We didn't study the English language last year. We didn't study the English language last year. You, ustedes. You didn't study the English language last year. You didn't study the English language last year. They, ellos. They didn't study the English language last year. They didn't study the English language last year. I, yo. Yo invité a Patrick, pero no invité a John. I invited Patrick, but I didn't invite John. You, tú, usted. You invited Patrick, but you didn't invite John. You invited Patrick, but you didn't invite John. He, él. He invited Patrick, but he didn't invite John. He invited Patrick, but he didn't invite John. She, ella. She invited Patrick, but she didn't invite John. She invited Patrick, but she didn't invite John. We, nosotros. We invited Patrick, but we didn't invite John. We invited Patrick, but we didn't invite John. You, ustedes. You invited Patrick, but you didn't invite John. You invited Patrick, but you didn't invite John. They, ellos. They invited Patrick, but they didn't invite John. They invited Patrick, but they didn't invite John. Yo. Yo recibí muchas cartas la semana pasada. Did I receive many letters last week? You, tú, usted. Did you receive many letters last week? Did you receive many letters last week? He, él. Did he receive many letters last week? Did he receive many letters last week? She, ella. Did she receive many letters last week? Did she receive many letters last week? We, nosotros. Did we receive many letters last week? Did we receive many letters last week? You, ustedes. Did you receive many letters last week? Did you receive many letters last week? They, ellos. Did they receive many letters last week? Did they receive many letters last week? Yo. Yo preferí no trabajar en ese lugar. I preferred not to work there. You, tú, usted. You prefer not to work there. You prefer not to work there. He, él. He preferred not to work there. He preferred not to work there. She, ella. She preferred not to work there. She preferred not to work there. We, nosotros. We preferred not to work there. We prefer not to work there. You, ustedes. You preferred not to work there. You prefer not to work there. They, ellos. They prefer not to work there. They prefer not to work there. Yo. Yo estudié para no reprobar el examen. I studied in order not to fail. You, tú, usted. You studied in order not to fail. You studied in order not to fail. He, él. He studied in order not to fail. He studied in order not to fail. She, ella. She studied in order not to fail. She studied in order not to fail. We, nosotros. We studied in order not to fail. We studied in order not to fail. You, ustedes. You studied in order not to fail. You studied in order not to fail. They, ellos. They studied in order not to fail. They studied in order not to fail.
Traduce las siguientes oraciones al inglés utilizando el presente simple y el presente progresivo. A mí me gusta estar en París en primavera. Ella desea ser una buena estudiante de inglés. Ellos están pagando los estudios de la universidad trabajando. Recuerda estas oraciones siempre hacerlas con todas las personas para que mecanices mucho mejor estas estructuras.